This is Tampa Home Talk, and I missed you last week. Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk this week, and I won't let the cat out of the bag just yet, but we got some really great surprises coming up for those of you listening, but we're not going to tell you until probably next week. So I don't even know if Leo and Adam know, so you're going to have to wait and see. No vacations or anything planned, right, next week?
No, and I know, so I'm just going to be quiet.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a shame because I'm out of town next week, so I'm going to miss it.
Well, you'll be back for all the fun the following week.
Ooh, I'm excited.
So, welcome back. This is Tampa Home Talk. How was last week, gentlemen? Good?
Oh, I think we had a blast last week.
Blast. I'm thoroughly convinced everyone now knows our off-air number.
All right, that works.
I gave them a specific, as my show notes told me, to give them a guide to the off-air number and how to use it properly. So that's what I did.
Leo, really?
That's what the title of the show was. It was insurance something or other and a guide to the off-air number.
You guys had Danielle on last week, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was fun. It was a good time, but we did miss you.
I missed you guys too.
Yeah.
It was a great weekend though.
But I'm always moving forward, like Luke Cage says on the Netflix show. Always forward.
That's right.
We got to talk about today's show and the selfie stick that doesn't have a phone in it.
Well, it's because it's over there. We'll figure that out. It's progress, not perfection, Leo.
Always forward.
That's right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest for today's topic, which is going to be protecting your assets. And today we're going to talk all about protecting wealth once you've worked so hard to build it. What are some of the things you should know that you need to know before you actually get there and it's a problem, and you might have to hire somebody like Ralph the lawyer to help you out. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
We are glad you're here. I might have to adjust you a little bit. Pat, I don't know if you're with me, but I don't hear him. I'm going to let you keep
Yeah, you have to turn him up just a little bit. Yeah, there. And are we on Facebook Live?
Yes, we are. We are on Facebook Live.
Facebook Live, yes. Okay, keep going there, Ralph.
Even though I'm holding the selfie stick, we are on Facebook Live due to the magic of the tripod that is known as a sofa chair.
Say hi to Pat.
Do you have me now?
I think so.
I think we have you. Okay. I think you sound a little bit better. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
I think Adam and Leo were rearranging some stuff in here last week. I got to blame them. They're the only ones here.
I didn't touch anything. I followed instructions and unplugged it, and that's all I did. You know?
Yeah, so I asked the insurance guy last week. I don't think this was on the air, but I might as well just say it. Yeah. I'm like, hey, so when you guys leave, make sure you unplug the equipment. And he's like, why? I go, well, for one, since you're here, if lightning were to strike my building, would it cover my equipment to connect to the station? He's like, well, yes, it would. So I'm like, I'm glad you're here, and I got a chance to ask. Talk about protecting your assets, right?
Absolutely.
But there was no lightning strikes.
And it was unplugged, so yeah. I remember. The insurance guy definitely remembered to unplug the equipment.
Listen, my dad has been preconditioning me from day one. He even unplugs the water jug in the back of the office before he leaves for the day.
Are you serious? Really?
Yeah, so he's on top of all his stuff. Me, a little less, you know.
There's a certain threshold where you remember.
Yeah.
Would it just make sense to have like a lightning arrestor or a battery backup plug?
Perhaps.
I mean, what if
you're the engineer? Can't you figure that out and bring it?
Well, yeah, it's a APC device. You can just get them wherever. I mean, I'm just thinking that if we're sitting here on the air and lightning strikes the building, then we're not protected. None of us are, and we're actually all connected, so we could all get electrocuted.
Oh, that's such an engineer thought. That's lovely, Leo.
Thanks.
That's great.
I actually have heard stories before of people in the shower getting electrocuted during a thunderstorm.
Well, the good news is I don't think there's any rain planned for today, so I think we're in the clear at least for the day.
Yeah, but we are in the heaviest rain state of the nation.
Does the shower have to be on?
Oh, yeah, you can be in the shower.
Okay.
In the shower with the shower water running, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about legal asset protection. And Ralph the lawyer, did you get your start as a personal injury attorney? Is that right?
It is my start, and it's also my finish. That's what I do. That's what I do primarily right now. By way of background, I'm with a firm, McIntyre, Thanacedes, Bringold, Elliott, Grimaldi, Guito, and Matthews.
That is quite a mouthful.
It really is. And I'm rather proud of myself for being able to kick that out. But we have 26 lawyers in the firm. And they all
have their own little niche?
We do. We have our own niche, asset protection. We have expert or specialized attorneys that focus their practice on asset protection in the firm, as well as commercial real estate, business asset and transactional law. We've got bankruptcy, asset protection, as I said, creditor rights. I focus my practice on personal injury, wrongful death, and malpractice. So as it relates to assets,
you see the flip side of that.
You know what? Right? I'm the guy you want to protect your assets from.
Right, so, which is an excellent point to it.
Right. So from my standpoint, I look at recovering damages from my my clients who have been injured either in personal injury actions and also in business losses as well.
We can't wait to pick your brain, can we?
I'm excited.
So talk about asset protection, like as it pertains to the state of Florida, right? From a legal perspective.
Well, from a legal perspective, asset protection has many different components to it. There are different ways that individuals can protect their assets, but the first thing we have to do as attorneys is understand the complexities of the assets that are owned by the individual. Each asset class will have its own component or level of protection that could be customized for that particular.
Can you give me a few examples of what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, sure. For example, homestead property.
Right,
in
so
the
it's
state.
your primary residence, you live
Correct.
there.
If it's your primary residence, the Florida Constitution provides that that particular asset is protected from judgment creditors, for example.
You know, I have to tell you just a really quick story because that's how this entire show came to be, right? A lot of the things, the topics, and the guests that we have for the show are based on things that we see in the field. And to make a super long story short, I had a guy that was a general contractor. Him and his wife owned a property. It was her primary residence. And long story short, the guy like you on the other side of the transaction that was defending the judgment and trying to collect for that judgment was so aggressive that he bullied our title company into not closing the transaction. And so it was a just incredible. I couldn't believe that they just would not close it, but the judgment wasn't certified, for one, which you know has to be. For two, it was a primary residence and the wife didn't have anything to do with it. So really they had no recourse, and I knew that because as long as I've been. So I ran it past one of the real estate attorneys we work with, and he's like, yeah, no, you're right, this is absolutely judgment proof, send it to me, we're going to close the deal. And they did, they closed it. And I mean, we're talking about a $250,000 judgment. And so,
large.
You know, so obviously if it's a homestead exemption, you have that protection, right? Because they can't, is it always, or what's the circumstances behind
Well,
that?
it is correct. And a lot of people get the terminologies somewhat mixed up between homestead exemption as it relates to limitations on taxing of the property by...
I think they're interchangeable, right? So people think the benefit for homestead exemption is that $50,000 discount they get before they're taxed, but what they don't realize is the flip side to this if you ever get sued.
Well, that is correct. So you have homestead protection that's afforded by the state constitution, and then you have homestead exemption, which is related to the maximum tax that can be imposed, or the carve-out, so to speak, of the amount of money that is non-taxable on your property, as well as limitations on the taxable rate of increase. The homestead protection law, the constitutional part, is what actually protects the homestead property from judgment creditors under certain conditions. Now, obviously, if you're taking out a mortgage and you have a loan, you're basically putting up your property as collateral for that loan. So if you default on your mortgage, then they can actually go into foreclosure proceedings and sell the house at auction to get their money back. That's something where the house is actually put into a collateral state. Other examples, for example, are mechanic liens. If you call somebody out to work on your air conditioner or do your roof or do some work around the house, they can have some liens that they can also place on the property.
Right. And there's a lien line, right? In the state of Florida, there's an order of priority, and a lot of times that's based on recording, but not always, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
So if you have a judgment and you're trying to buy a home, even a primary residence, you're not going to get one until you take care of that judgment.
Well, that's true. And so the homestead protection applies if you were to buy a home. You want to make sure that that home has no recorded liens, because they will attach to that property. If you buy it, then you move in, you make it your primary residence. It does not extinguish all of those prior liens.
Because it's the chicken before the egg, like which one came first, right?
That is correct.
So in that particular situation, in that story, being that you're the other guy, I love to have that perspective. What protection does that person have? Like if they go to buy again, what would your suggestion be?
Well, when they go to buy a house, obviously, as their primary residence or any other property, you want to make sure that title searches are performed and that you get, title insurance to make sure that you've got, clean title once you make that major investment.
And if you're certainly if you have a lender, they're not going to even lend on it without that title insurance being performed. But the question is more specifically, what if you have cash, right? And obviously we'll do the title searches in the contract, but if you go to buy in the future, what does that next purchase look like? And we'll talk about that when we come back right after the break. Like how it involves a husband and wife. Should it go in a trust? We'll talk about some of those things and more on Tampa Home Talk when we come back. Our author number is 813-377-2775. Again, it's 813-377-2775.
Welcome back. This is Tampa Home Talk. We had a very, very interesting off-air conversation. The question was so great, I think I'm going to make Adam repeat it.
So I was asking, when it comes to protecting yourself when you own multiple properties for investment purposes, that kind of stuff. I see a lot, of investors come to me and they have homes in the name of an LLC or a trust, and I know how that protects them from the actual property standpoint. But on the reverse of that, as an asset or an interest that I have in that, okay, am I protected if I personally injure somebody and you need to come after me and get as much as you can?
Well,
I just want to clarify the question really quick. So the CEO of the LLC or the owner of the LLC,
Correct.
managing member.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if you injure somebody in a car accident, let's say.
Yeah, then that's usually going to be your,
Okay.
I would assume.
So
the number
Adam
one reason.
owns 3 properties, and
Yeah.
they're all in one LLC.
Yep, they're all in Talley Town LLC.
Okay, and then Talley Town LLC, or Adam Talley personally, which is not the LLC,
Correct.
injures someone in an automobile accident.
First thing, yes, correct. Obviously, look to the auto insurance. And as a personal injury lawyer, all of our cases are handled on a contingency fee basis, which means if we don't recover for our clients, they don't owe us a penny. We even advance the costs, and if we don't recover, they don't owe us fees or costs.
So no retainer.
There is no retainer,
Okay.
no upfront fees, and all contingency fee, all personal injury lawyers generally practice that way. I mean, a lot of lawyers out there advertise, hey, for us, it's no fees up front. They all pretty much do that, just as a general rule.
Yeah, you're like us. You put all the blood, sweat, tears, and work into it, only in the end.
That's right.
Once you made it happen, you get paid.
Their percentage is slightly higher than yours.
A little bit.
So the business decision as a lawyer would be, and it's going to dovetail into the question that you have, Adam, is when a lawyer takes on a case, they have to see, number one, was there liability, was there damages that their client sustained, and what's the collectability of a judgment should one be obtained. Many lawyers don't go that route of looking into significant assets from people that cause injury. And in Adam, you're talking about maybe being in a car accident. Many lawyers just go straight to the auto insurance. And if there is no auto insurance, many of them, most, I would say, won't even pursue the case. They would
What
just.
would the exception to that rule be if the damages are extensive, like way beyond the limits of the auto policy, and perhaps even terminal? Right? They're no longer here.
Yes, and in my practice, and I've seen in a lot of other practices, I've done this for 30 years, it does depend on the level of the damages that are sustained. Obviously, if somebody has minor injuries, then an attorney is not going to take that case on a contingency fee basis and go for full asset checks and go and expend that kind of resources in doing an asset investigation, because the recovery for the client is not going to be as great. Hence, because of a contingency fee, that attorney is not going to make as much money. So the return on investment by an attorney going after somebody in that case would be different. Now, as you said, when you have a case of extraordinary damages, maybe a spinal cord injury or brain injury or burns, in many cases wrongful death, then there's a heightened investigation that the personal injury attorney is going to undergo. And at that point, if there is inadequate insurance, say that there's no bodily injury insurance that you're maintaining. Adam, I can't even imagine that.
Not in my case, but yeah, it happens. I've seen it.
So in that case, you can either have no insurance or you can have underinsured, meaning you only have a limited amount of money, maybe $10,000 under the BI policy or 50 or whatever, depending on the injuries relative to the policy. And there are no uninsured motorist benefits. Say the injured person didn't maintain UM, then that attorney is going to look to the other assets. And in that case, attorneys are going to do their own independent investigation, and they're also going to, if you do have insurance, ask that insurance company, for Adam, your own insurance company, hey, have him sign off on an asset investigation affidavit. Okay.
Now, what does that mean if they do that?
Well, in many instances, if we are going to accept funds from an insurance company to settle a case and the damages exceed what the value is, we may give that insurance company an affidavit, an asset affidavit, and request that you, Adam, if in the accident, execute that, sign it out, list all your bank accounts, list all your real estate, list all your automobiles, your jewelry, your stock, your retirement accounts, all of these different things. So we ask the insurance companies to do that, but we also have our own investigation team that will go out and do that. We have a lot of databases like Lexis and Westlaw that can track all of these assets anywhere in the country.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So, we talk about all the time, or we hear people talking about hiding assets, right? Like, it's something everyone's heard of at some point or another. How does that relate in terms of you're going after damages of some sort and someone's hiding assets? How do they do that?
Well, we're not a proponent of hiding assets, obviously. Just
protecting, right?
Protecting them, yeah. Right, and there's a difference. There's a difference between, I think, hiding an asset and protecting an asset.
So hiding is lying, not telling you have it.
Well, hiding is, in a sense, the way I look at it, is you can't see it. It's something that you can't see. I've seen, for example, land trusts where, it's a mechanism by which a trust is created, and then there's a trustee for the property, and that trustee is a separate name. And then the beneficiary of the land trust is the actual owner of the property per se, but when it shows up on the record, all you see is the trustee. You never see the owner.
I've seen some of those trusts buried so deep that by the time you do all the investigation, most attorneys are not going to do that.
Right. And then, for example, the owner of that property, which is called the beneficiary in a land trust, can then be involved in an LLC and layers of different mechanisms down the road. It's not hiding the asset,
Right.
but what it does is when we do property searches, we just see the name of the beneficiary in the land trust. We don't see the beneficiary, which is the person that we might be trying to go after. So it's a way of not seeing it, but the asset is still there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about protecting property from the IRS? And it's too bad Darren's not here, right?
Yeah, he'd be a good,
So good at this.
God and taxes. I mean, death and taxes. I mean, that's, I'm not a proponent of doing anything to escape any liability with respect to the IRS.
I wasn't insinuating that.
Yeah, the IRS, I mean, they have great powers.
Yeah, they do. It's interesting. I did an IRS solution attorney show with Darren for several years, and so I learned so much about how and what the IRS does and doesn't do. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, now it's all automated, so it makes it scary.
It's automated, and the government shutdowns, kind of puts everything to a halt. So hopefully that's fixed soon.
And you can learn more about the government shutdown on what show?
Well, Tampa Home Talk has some information, but if you want to look through all that political side of it, you can tune in at 11 for the Sarge. They love talking about that stuff. I think he's with Mark Steckman today.
Very interesting.
So when it comes to being too late, right, to protect assets from creditors, when do you think it's too late?
Well, the best answer to that is if you have assets, I would suggest sitting down with a qualified attorney and going over all of your assets and putting together an asset protection strategy in conjunction with estate planning. And I think the two are intermixed. I think it would be too late, even though there might not be a point where it's actually too late itself. And that's when you've got the judgment that you're trying to protect your assets from. So doing it early, knowing that we're going to have exposure, I think is the more prudent approach. It's like car insurance. I mean, if you're going to be driving in the roads, chances are you are risking yourself to either be hit by somebody who doesn't maintain adequate insurance, or you might make a mistake yourself just by accident. It happens, and you hurt somebody else. The reality of that is more likely than not, we're all going to be in an accident at at some point in our driving life. Knowing that liability is going to be there for us, I think it's important that we structure assets to protect in that situation. Of course, buying auto insurance is one of those mechanisms for protecting your asset in that particular liability exposure. So,
what's another example that, obviously, other than auto insurance, right? You would want to have that.
Well, other exposures, everything that we do in life. You're maintaining a business. You have employees that are maybe injured on the job, so workers' compensation insurance mandated by Florida law. But you want to make sure that all of these different exposure mechanisms are evaluated by a qualified attorney in the state of Florida. They can then analyze your assets and protect you for each one of those liability contingencies that can come into play.
So I'm going to give you another scenario when we come back after the break. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. When we come back, Adam, why don't you share how should you insure, right, to make sure that you protect whatever that asset pool looks like, right? How should you insure based on your net worth, I guess is what I'm trying to ask you. Right. And we'll touch on uninsured motorists when we come back right after the break.
Sounds good. Morning and welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. This is Adam Talley with Talley Insurance, and we're going to talk about our 2-minute tip of the week. And in the, vein of our conversation today, I want to talk about liability insurance. And most people don't know, but on your homeowner's policy, you can actually increase your liability coverage from $100,000 to $500,000 for maybe $40 a year, depending on the carrier. So having that extra liability insurance, not the cost that you think it's going to be, $3 or $4 extra a month, you can be a little better protected. Yeah, definitely worth it.
Ralph shared a little general story, too, over the break, and you made an excellent point. I'm hoping you could repeat that and give just a little short snippet of what that story was like, and then we'll go back to the question I asked you for the break.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think the issue that we were talking about was uninsured or underinsured motorist, and it's basically called insurance. It is underinsured or uninsured motorist, and Adam's going to talk on that. And we had a case where this poor girl, she was about 23 years old. She was involved in an automobile accident. She did not maintain underinsured or uninsured motorists. So basically what that means is she relied upon whoever it was that was going to make the mistake and hit her, that they had adequate insurance. And
a pretty bad accident for her too, right?
It was a very, very bad accident. She lost her leg. It was a below-knee amputation, devastating, life-altering.
It's a young girl to lose part of a limb like that.
It was a devastating and a beautiful girl. And we had represented her. She'd actually gone to 3 or 4 other lawyers before she came to us because she was looking for resources that were not going to be there for her because she didn't maintain her own uninsured motorist coverage, and the person that hit her only had a bodily injury policy of $10,000 and had no assets on their own. It was a teenage driver who didn't have anything, and she was limited to $10,000 for that devastating injury. And many of the clients that come into my office in varying levels of injury caused by the negligence of others, when we go over the insurance talk with them, we ask them whether they have uninsured motorist, and many of them don't even know what that is. They don't know what it does to protect them. And it basically is your insurance that's going to pay for your damages if somebody else hits you and they don't have adequate insurance.
And not just damages to a car you can replace, like damages to you.
No, it's personal injury damages. It's damages for your medical expenses, your lost wages, both in the past and in the future, any disfigurement damages, and then you have the intangible losses like pain and suffering and mental anguish and loss of enjoyment of life, real elements of damages. Thinking about that client who lost their leg, those kinds of damages are significant. Those losses will be with her forever, and they're mental injury damages. So the best advice that I give my clients when they leave is to get uninsured motorist coverage. It protects you so that if you're in an injury accident caused by somebody else and they don't have their own insurance to cover it, or they have inadequate limits and they have no assets, you bought insurance for yourself, and it's the best protection that's out there. And so many people don't know about it.
Yeah, during the break he was saying why so many people just get in a car and drive and just assume that somebody else has adequate coverage is beyond me. And I thought that's so profound. Like,
It is crazy.
There's a lot to that.
Especially with all the cars on the road, and it just everybody's texting and looking at their phones. They're distracted.
Yep.
It's getting more dangerous out there, and protect yourself. That's what insurance is all about.
Right.
You're going to buy homeowners protection to protect your home, your liability there. Buy insurance for any injuries that are caused.
Yeah, you probably have a much greater damage, right, of having to claim a car than you do in your house, right?
Far more likely. I mean, hey, look at the cost of your auto insurance versus the cost of your homeowner's insurance,
Makes
and that'll
sense.
tell you
It's a
how many
moving,
claims come. You know?
Big hunk of metal. So,
And plastic.
yeah, and a lot of plastic, unfortunately. So, how does that work, like, with regards to the uninsured motorist? Like, what do you see most people get on their policy, and what do you think they should have?
So, I mean, if you're talking what most people get, and you got to understand what we see is probably a little different than the scope of the entire, even Tampa Bay area, because the state only requires that you have PIP, which is personal injury protection, and property damage. So, you know, in that
Is there a
case, at least that
minimum
guy
amount?
had bodily injury at 10,000. I mean, it could have been nothing
Is there a minimal amount that they're required to have?
for.
Personal injury? And
So personal injury is just a $10,000 limit. That's what you get.
The minimum.
It's the only. I mean,
That's
you
the
can.
only one,
It's the only one they got. And you can have a $0 deductible, $1,000 deductible, and it'll cover up to 80% of your medical expenses. So not even all of your medical expenses, but up to 80%.
Yeah.
And if you include work loss, it'll combine, and you can get up to 60% of your lost wages.
And so,
But $10,000 goes pretty quick.
in the property damage, that's just for physical damage?
That's just
or?
physical damage. So you have plenty of people that are driving around out there that don't have any liability insurance for bodily injury. In our agency, we don't write anything with just PIP and PD, so we don't, we see a little bit of different clientele there. But, as far as purchasing it, what I've seen is usually people are somewhere around 25, 50, 50, 100. I see a lot of people that, they bring their uninsured motorist down a little bit. Doesn't necessarily always match their bodily injury, and it's because if you're looking at auto insurance as a whole, the rates are going up. So when people are looking to, lower their cost, they look at the things that only affect them, as opposed to the bodily
And the
injury side.
uninsured motorist is for someone else?
Well, the uninsured motorist is for you.
For you, okay.
Yeah, but if you're looking at rates and everything else like that, the bodily injury is what really kind of ties in what your rate is and everything. But
Right.
You always want to have a little bit higher on the bodily injury side when it comes to rating, because you get a discount for having higher coverages and that kind of stuff. So that's one of those things that we try to build people up over time to try to explain to them. You're going to pay a little bit more this time, but moving forward, you're going to put yourself in a better spot, so you're not perpetually paying more for less coverage.
Right.
Which is
When I
the
heard
problem.
you talk earlier about a teenage driver that hit that girl, of course my ears perked up because I've got like 2 teenage drivers. So going back to that, like, how does that work? And you can probably both chime in on this. Like, the teenage driver, or maybe 18-year-old, right, because I got one under, one over, hit somebody, and let's say they hit that girl and she lost part of her leg, then what? Like, how does that affect the parents of the teenage driver? And then going back to my original question, Adam, you can tag on to Ralph's statement is, how should we insure, based on assets?
Great question. And tagging on to what Adam was saying on the bodily injury and the uninsured motorist, under state law, the insurance company has to offer you uninsured motorist limits at the limits of your bodily injury coverage. And if you don't want them at your limits of the BI coverage, you have to reject it on a form that's approved by the state in capital letters with certain font, certain point type. Because I hereby reject. That's
You have to initial and sign, and what will happen, what some of our carriers will do is if they don't get that UM form signed, they're endorsing your policy whether you want to or not, and they're putting your UM limits right to match them. They're giving you a stack too, because
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So stacked would be Stacked UM coverage is where basically the UM coverage literally just adds on top of each other for however many vehicles you have. So if you have 1020 for UM and it's stacked and you have 3 cars, well, now you have 30, 60.
cars.
Yeah.
So in those situations, too, these rejection forms are part of what we look at. So when we first send that letter of representation to the insurance company, we want to see a signed rejection form from their insured.
What does that mean?
Meaning that they did reject uninsured motorist, or, like Adam said, took uninsured motorist benefits at a limit lower than their bodily injury coverage.
Why?
Well, because if I don't see that rejection form and that insurance company can't produce that rejection form to me, that means they did not comply with Florida law in properly getting that rejection from their client. That means I could potentially get uninsured motorist benefits from them.
Going after the insurance company.
Going
or
after my
whatever
client's own insurance company in uninsured motorist benefits. So it's important. The fact that they have to reject this and go through all of that, to me, just reflects how important this insurance really is. So it's just more important, I think, to add UM insurance. Keep your limits high. It's for your own protection. That's when insurance really is. Look, you can get insurance to protect yourself and protect your assets from somebody coming at you. That's one thing. But also, don't ever underestimate how important insurance is to protect yourself from other people.
I think, didn't you tell me you have kids? Are your kids grown or are they teenagers?
They're grown, but they sometimes act
Still
like
out
teenagers.
So if you're in that spot where you have teenagers or very young adults that are on your policy, what did you do knowing what you know?
Well, okay, a couple of things. Now, you could
I want to know what your policy looked like and what that was like.
All right. Well, my son now is 22 years old, and he's in college right now studying engineering.
Nice.
So,
Hi.
following his dad's footsteps. I was an engineer before I became a lawyer. And
Nice.
I get these thumbs up over here for those in the radio world. So one of the best ways that you can protect yourself as a parent is if you're going to get your adult teenager a vehicle. Some people are going to have no choice but to go ahead and finance that, and they're going to have the vehicle in their name, and it may be in their child's name or not in their child's name, and they're giving that car to their child. Well, under Florida law, the registered owner of a vehicle also has liability just for letting somebody else use their car. So it's called vicarious liability and dangerous instrumentality doctrine. You can do that and have that liability even if you just lend your car to a friend or anybody else.
But that's how they look at it, right?
That's how they look at it. It's you are a registered owner. You have a responsibility to maintain that dangerous instrumentality, which is a car. And if you give it to somebody else, you are liable for the acts of that person in negligently driving that car. So in the case of a teenager, a child, a lot of strategies may include, well, just give the car to your child. Put the car in your child's name alone. This way, when I say child, I'm talking about an 18-year-old or above,
Right.
an adult. But by having their own vehicle in their own name and their own policy of insurance, even if you're going to pay that policy, insulates you as a parent if they go out and engage in a negligent act and potentially hurt somebody.
There is a
So how?
good
Talk about that.
bonus to that as well. So that's exactly what my parents did when I was in college.
As soon as you were 18, they're like, it's in your name.
Bonus part of that is if you live in Tampa and your kid goes to Florida State, for instance, the rate in Tallahassee is a heck of a lot better than in Tampa. So you could actually be paying a little bit less money if you put it in their name and have it, registered wherever they live at school.
So I want to talk more about that when we come back, even though we're running out of time, like totally. What happens if you don't? That's what I want to know. What happens if you don't and it's still in the parent's name? And then, Adam, I want you to chime in the last part on how do we insure, again, against those assets?
Yeah.
So you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. Our offer number, if you want to connect with Adam Talley, Ralph the lawyer, or myself, or, of course, Leo King with Darrell Engineering and Inspections, it is 813-377-2775. You can call or text that number, 813-377-2775.
Well, good morning.
welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. I'm Leo Kane with Barrel Engineering. Time for my favorite segment, which is what is Katrina's active listings.
All right, we got to hurry up and blow through this because we still have a lot to talk about. But 8801 Rustic Trail in Tampa, beautiful home. It's actually getting a little facelift. $325 is going to be the price on that one. 5-bedroom, 2.5 bath, almost 3,000 square feet, right in the heart of Tampa. We also have 834 Viscount Street in Tampa, almost 3,500 square feet. Beautiful, beautiful home. 5-bedroom, 3-bath, 425 gated community, open floor plan, just amazing property. And we have a total little gem at 10904 Kenmore Drive in Newport Richey. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, almost 1,400 square feet, only $168. And we have a home for rent in Temple Terrace area of Tampa for $1,300 per month. And then a beautiful waterfront on the lake, ski lake in Odessa, finally live, 9011 Oyster Shell Trail for $350. It's 0.63 of an acre, amazing property. And then Greeley Court, we have that one at 3.2 for $225 in Wesley Chapel. And then this one is amazing also on a huge ski lake, not far from the casino in the heart of Tampa, at 5104 St. Charles Place in Tampa. That one's not yet live, I don't think, but it will be very soon. I think this weekend we're doing an open house on many of these. So just go to Tampa Home Talk on Facebook. We'll share these. We got some really amazing, incredible listings coming on the market real soon.
Yeah, this was supposed to be Leo's segment.
I'm sorry, Leo. Go. We had to go through it quick. I had to push that engineer along.
Done.
It was interesting, though, because Leo's like, hey, we're doing the inspection on one of these. It went away.
Yeah, the one on Moore Loop. We're doing the inspection on it. I think we're doing it on either today or tomorrow.
Yes, that was actually our buyer and one of our buyers that came from hearing us on the air.
Oh, fantastic.
Isn't that exciting?
That's very exciting. So this was Leo Kane's presentation of Katrina's listings for the week. Yeah.
I want them to answer my question, and we're going to run out of time.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
You need to answer that one.
Okay, so as far as
How am I protecting my assets especially against how do I need to insure myself? Like, let's say you've got, I don't know, 2 properties, right? You got a primary residence that's worth $300,000. You got an investment property worth $200,000. That's $500,000. And you got an office building that's $500,000. Some cars, some other random assets. So you got over $1 million in assets. How should you be insuring yourself?
Well, the best way, obviously, is you got to start on your base policy. So you got to bring all the limits up on your auto policy. Highest you can go in most cases is $250,500. So that's $250,000 per person, $500,000 per accident on the bodily injury side. On the homeowner side, you're going to want to increase that liability like we talked about. Another thing that people don't know is, so personal injury coverage isn't necessarily included in your liability on your homeowner's policy automatically. So you need to add that by an endorsement because your personal injury, that's going to cover things like libel and slander and, in the age of Facebook and everything else. If you have teenagers are mean, so they can say some things online that could get you in some hot water.
Some of the stuff I see on Snapchat,
it's crazy out there. And then
I think it goes away, but
it doesn't. And then once you have all that, on top of that, you're going to want to start looking at an umbrella policy. Now, umbrella policies, compared to everything else, very inexpensive.
So in this scenario, if you've got over $1 million in assets, you should have an umbrella policy, a higher limit policy.
Well, you got to start at the base level because the umbrella won't take you if you have 10, 20, because then you have a huge gap to where they would start covering. But the umbrella policy, you can go, depending on how much assets you have, you can go up to, 10 million.
Are you saying it covers extras?
What it does is it goes on top of all of the other policies that you have.
Like the umbrella.
Which you guys probably love, right? You see that?
Plus.
Plenty of insurance.
And then you can actually add up to $1 million of coverage on most umbrella policies as well.
In what instance would that be necessary?
I mean, if you get in an accident and somebody's uninsured and it's drastic, life-changing.
As an example, we just concluded representation of a client who was involved in an accident, a passenger in a vehicle. It was a rollover, suffered spinal cord injury, and has quadripresis now. At one time could not move from the neck down, but now brought himself to the point where he's got limited movement in hands and in his feet, and is able to ambulate really about 10 feet at a time. 35 years old. his life has changed forever. The personal needs that he will have, the activities of daily living, the modifications to his home, the modifications to his car, his earning capacity, his intangible losses like we talked about, loss of enjoyment of life, those are real under Florida law. The medical care that he's going to require, as all of his organs now have some issue with them because of the loss of neurologic function. Devastating. And when you look at that and you talk about those kinds of injuries in the face of $1 million uninsured motorist coverage, we're talking about damages that are $20 and $30 million or more.
So then what?
Exactly.
Then what?
I mean, you could never, I guess, truly be fully insured.
Yeah, but so then what? Then you're suing that person personally?
Well,
If they have any money, hopefully the person in the Rolls Royce is what hits you, but it's not always the case.
GoFundMe?
I guess.
There are options that are out there, but the main thing is everybody needs to really take care of their own health and benefit with their own personal insurance, uninsured motorist coverage, making sure that they've got insurance against bad things that happen to them, and that they've got insurance for some of the bad things that they might accidentally do to others in order to protect their own assets.
So, almost out of time. I guess we could go back to that teenage driver because you never did totally answer it. What happens if it's still in the parents' names, right? They bought it when they were minor because they had to, right?
Well,
Now,
you're liable. You could be brought in as a defendant in a lawsuit. Any other insurance or any other assets that you may have that's not protected could be exposed in that situation.
so sued personally, everything across the board.
We bring in drivers and owners of vehicles all the time in litigation because there is that exposure and we have to protect our clients' interests.
All right. So that is way more than a 2-minute tip of the day for real estate. There's so much to know when it comes to this space, and people work really hard for everything they have. And I guess in the big picture, right? Be careful. Watch out for the others. Stay off your phone.
Yes, stay off your phone. Drive safe. Those vehicles are deadly weapons, as he kind of alluded to earlier.
Yes.
So the best way you can protect yourself is be aware of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, this is Tampa Home Talk, and our off-air number is 813-377-2775. Again, you can call or text 813-377-2775. You've been a little bit quiet, Leo. I stole your thunder, didn't I?
Well, I mean, this was such an interesting topic, and it didn't deal really with inspections or mortgages.
What do you got going on? Anything exciting?
So I just wanted to let Adam take over. And kind of.
Well, I'm not going to be here next week, so you can have the entire show to talk about engineering and all that fun stuff.
I mean, nothing really new and exciting. We're still dealing with Hurricane Irma claims.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, we actually have 6 inspections next week for insurance denying Hurricane Irma claims. It's just amazing.
Got any issues, hit us up. We'll get you in touch with Leo, 813-377-2775.
Text Irma to
813-377-2775.
Remember, love where you live. We're going to fix it. Welcome home. Have a great weekend.